Alright, welcome to yet another fabulous Linux Zoo Crew. It's been a while since we had a Zoo Crew here on the LDC, and today we will be talking about repurposing old hardware. One of the greatest strengths Linux gives us is the ability to combat planned obsolescence and breathe new life into old hardware. We can extend the use of computers we purchase rather than replacing them every few years. We can benefit from using the software we enjoy for a longer period of time, or we can take that old hardware and put it back to work for a different purpose altogether. Now, before we start today's show, here are a few words from the founder of the Linux distro community, Voltam.
Hi, I'm Voltam, founder of the Linux distro community. The Linux distro community is a place for people to hang out and discuss Linux distros, software, and open source. The Linux distro community is a community funded by its members for its members. We are a friendly, welcoming community that encourages people who use Linux operating systems and software to share their passion and knowledge with other people. We believe that when people share information freely, everyone benefits. We'd love to see you become a part of the Linux distro community. You can voice chat with us on Mumble or text chat with us in IRC. Head over to linuxdistrocommunity.com for details. Join in today in the sharing of knowledge and the freedom that a Linux operating system gives people. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Voltam. Well, on the panel today, we have Brian, Lord Shadowwing, Seka, Will McDade, and the Master of Mayhem, Spatry.
Hey, welcome one and all. Now Brian has a channel on YouTube. He just started out. Lord Shadowwing's been on a few episodes of the Linux Lounge, and he seems to be very knowledgeable about things. We've got the wizard himself, Setka, here. How you doing, buddy? Long time no see.
I'm not too bad. A little bit crook, but I think I'll get better as we go on.
Well, I think the alarm just woke you up about, what, 2 minutes ago?
Yeah, pretty much.
Have another cup of coffee there. All right, and then, of course, Matthew Moore, and Matthew Moore has teamed up with me. He's the developer of Manjaro by Matthew Moore, and then you also have two Ubuntu respins, and so we've decided to pool our resources together to work on the Manjaro Cup of Linux edition. Great to have you on the show. And then, of course, Will McDade, who's also a member of cupoflinux.com. You're always building new computers. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm not really building them all the time. I'm more fiddling. That's more of a curse. So yeah, I've got an older system and a netbook and a few other things lying around. I tend to use what I have, so yeah, try and get that working. Yeah,
but I've noticed that some time ago you were fixing up computers and posting those things on eBay and that sort of thing.
Well, that was a computer that I tried to sell, but it was on its way out anyway, so yeah, that's gone. I tried to sell it with Manjaro as well.
All right, I got you. Well, the thing is, you can put it to good use, and that's what we are here for. So what are some things you can do with old computers? How can they be repurposed so that we can obtain several more years of use out of them? And what are some of the problems that we'll have to face? What software should they run? These are some things that we're going to be exploring, and the first thing I think I'd talk about is media centers. Now, for those of you who've seen episode 500 of on my show, my mom actually came in and she talked about Linux Lite, and she also talked about her media center. And there are many different applications you can run, such as XBMC, or you can use Plex. Pin Guy was talking with me about that earlier, and he said to mention Plex. Haven't really tried it myself yet. But I decided to opt with Linux Lite because it's so easy to configure, and I wanted to put something together that would allow a 71-year-old lady to watch TV and to easily access all of her streaming services on the internet by clicking a large giant button and then just pressing a simple key on the keyboard that would close the application. And I wanted to make this 100% perfectly old lady proof, and it seems to be working out great, and she absolutely loves it. The nice thing about building a media center is that, especially if you're just streaming media or you're using like a dongle that allows you to view television programming, you really don't need that powerful of a processor. All right, so let's talk about running a media center. using a Linux distribution to run a media center. We'll start off with you, Brian.
Yeah, I have I think I bought the thing in 2010, around March 2010, an Acer netbook. It has a 1.4 gigahertz Atom processor, has a whole whopping 1 gig of RAM, and I put Linux Mint 16 32-bit edition on that with the XFCE desktop, and I use that as my XBMC media center, and it works pretty well.
And it's interesting that you say that, because Mom's computer that was repurposed into a media center only has 512 megs of RAM. So, I mean, that's got a lot to say that these things don't really require that much power. How about you, Lord Shadowwing?
Well, I don't really have an old computer that I've repurposed into a media center yet. I am considering getting a Raspberry Pi to use as a media center for streaming YouTube and such, but currently all I really use is an Xbox 360, and it's not that bad considering what it is.
Matthew, any thoughts?
Well, I haven't personally created any media centers. I had a really old computer that I put together, and I used it for an IRC client and a file server, but I think it's a good way to use old hardware that's just sitting around and collecting dust, because, I mean, honestly, when they get really good for a whole lot, so, put them to work.
Now, Setka, a resident wizard here, I think he's repurposed machines for all kinds of stuff. Have you delved into media centers, Setka?
Well, it's not exactly an old machine, but I did drop a machine off a balcony, a laptop, and it smashed up all the hinges and things like that, so you couldn't open the lid, and it obviously broke the screen. But I did actually repurpose that laptop because it has a HDMI connector on it to be a media center, and it's sitting behind my TV happily right now.
I have to ask you, Setka, was it running Windows when you hurled it out the window?
Actually, it may have been. It may have been while I was at work one day, and yeah, it was running Windows, and I didn't actually throw it. I did drop it, but it's a good story.
Okay, well, the thing is, I've seen some instances where people have kind of upset you here on the LDC, and there was one instance where you banned the entire state of Iowa or something like that. And so I'm just picturing you just getting upset and hurling this thing out the window, and I'm sure that wasn't the case, but
yeah, I mean that sort of thing has been known to happen. It's definitely something that I do just for the hell of doing it, and that one was an accident. That was just a misplaced zero.
Gotcha. Well, what are your thoughts?
Well, I haven't really turned anything into a media center. I did stream stuff from my server, which was made out of an old PC. But yeah, I just mainly use my tablet, or I install XBMC on whatever Linux distro I'm using. So yeah, I use that, and it hardly uses any power at all to get going. It's one distro that I want to try. It's called OpenELEC, which stands for Open Embedded Linux Entertainment Center, and runs on Raspberry Pi. It has optimized builds for Atom and Ion and Fusion and stuff. So yeah, that's what I really want to try out one day.
Okay, and you did mention that you do have portable devices, and that brings us to the next possible purpose that you would want to repurpose an old computer for. You may hear this a lot of people talking about having NAS systems, and basically what these are basically home file servers, where you can share files across your home network. And because as many of you know, the portable devices that we're using nowadays, really you can't store a whole lot of data on them. So being able to have a NAS server set up in your home, you can have your entire library of family movies, and other media available to all of the computers that are connected in your network. So, and the thing is, these don't require very much power as well. And with hard drives being available on the cheap, large capacity hard drives, you could put them into an old computer, and then have your media being able to be streamed throughout the household. What do you think of that one, Brian?
Yeah, I think that's a great use for a machine like that. I pretty much use Samba. I install Samba server on all of my Linux machines. I share files that way, and I use apps on my Android devices to be able to access Samba shares. So that's a way to do it. There's also I think it's FreeNAS, a couple of applications out there that you can actually use to turn an old PC into a dedicated NAS box.
Absolutely, and this is a good way that you can share those files in the home. Shadow, do you do any home file sharing?
Well, my parents won't let me, but if I would, I have an old Pentium 3 system. It's got a 10 gigabyte system drive and a 30 gig data drive. If I could, I would set that up as a Linux file server. Currently, it's got Windows Server 2000 on it, but it doesn't work too well.
Gotcha. And Matthew uses a little bit of everything. He's got Linux, Windows, Mac, and a Chromebook. How do you share files between these systems?
Well, to share files between all of them at the same time is quite a challenge, but I usually use Samba following the SMB protocols on the other devices, which is essentially the same thing. And that's pretty much it. When I had that old ThinkPad of mine, it would pretty much stay on all the time live on the network, and I could just pull and share files to that all along from anywhere on my network. It worked well.
And how about you, Setka? How are you sharing those files? Do you have a NAS server set up? I imagine you probably do. As a matter of fact, last time I saw last time we were on webcams and stuff like that, your office looked like a technological terror with all these wires and everything going over the place. So I imagine you got to have something set up like that.
Not so much technological terror, more fire hazard. But yeah, there is a lot of cables there. I actually have 5. I have a total capacity in NAS servers of around about 24 terabytes. None of those machines are very old. They're actually quite new, purpose-built FreeNAS machines. But you can do it any way. I just did a custom build not long ago on an old P4 box with 250 gigs for a little family because they kept filling up their laptop, and Dad was getting very annoyed that the laptop was always filled up with games and things like that. So I did a custom build for that as well. But I use Linux with that one because FreeNAS can be a little bit difficult sometimes, and to keep it nice and simple.
Now, let me ask you, if somebody were to explore the option of creating a home file server, what would you say the minimum requirements for something like that would be?
You can basically rip the processor and the RAM out of it and just fill it up with hard drives.
So really, we're not talking about anything really extremely powerful. So you would just have something set up there so that anybody could just easily retrieve files off the network without any trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the builds that I do is mainly for storing pictures and some videos and things like that. So it's not high demand stuff. So you don't even need a high capacity network because if you're building it on older hardware, 100 megabits per second is probably going to be more than enough to make the drives work hard.
All right, sounds great. And then, Will, how do you transfer files across your network at home?
I personally use SSH through the SFTP protocol through my server, which has 4 hard drives, but they're all ID, so yeah, it's slower speeds, but yeah, it works quite well.
Okay, so there are some options that are available to you, and the thing is, the Lifehacker website does have a really nice tutorial that explains how you can set that up. Okay, now something else that is of concern to people is firewalls. You want to protect your safety at home and that sort of thing. And one way that people can, breathe new life into that old computer is setting up a firewall. We'll start off with you, Setka, because I imagine that you probably have 20 of them set up at your house. Go ahead and tell us about setting up firewalls.
Firewalls aren't as scary as a lot of people make them out to be. There's a few dedicated distros out there like Smoothwall that purpose built for it. And if you wanted to go even simpler than that, you could just install IP tables and put a second Ethernet card into any machine that you're looking to set up as a firewall, and it literally takes around about 10 minutes to set up. If you've got, if you have IP tables experience, that is, if you use Smoothwall, it's nice and simple. You just set up the host card and then the outbound card, or the inbound card and the outbound card, and you stick that between your modem and your router, or however your network's set up, your modem and your switch, or however you do it. And then it basically just takes over from there, and it works like a normal, you get a web interface, and then it's just port forwarding as normal.
Excellent. Now, I have to ask you, because this has been brought up in some conversations that I've had, that a lot of people are recommending a pfSense. Have you ever heard of that software? And if so, have you tried it?
I've heard of it. I actually haven't had a chance to sit down and take a look at it.
Okay, fair enough. All right, and Brian, any comments on that?
I've never set up a firewall like that. I pretty much just depend on my home router to do that. Although I know that there are, if you have a router that will accept open source firmware like DDWork or something like that, setting up those firewall settings are fairly trivial.
Yeah, and the thing is, many distributions now have. I know for a fact Ubuntu has one, but many distributions do have GUI tools which allow you to manage IP tables so that you can manage your firewall on your own personal computer. But it can be advantageous to have a computer where the internet arrives into your home, and then have that set up as a firewall itself. It looks like Lord Shadowwing wants to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a page here that pfSense is based off of MonoWall, which is based off of FreeBSD. So if you're using pfSense or MonoWall, you're actually using a BSD system.
Okay, and does it have any information? Like, do you how many does it accept wireless, or do you have to have Ethernet cards hooked up to it? Is there any further? I haven't had a chance to research into it myself.
Yeah, pfSense, you can put a wireless card into whatever computer you're going to turn it into. Not sure about MonoWall, but I know with pfSense, if you get a supported Wi-Fi card, preferably PCI, it will work for you as turning it into a wireless output.
Any thoughts on firewalls, Matthew?
Not really. I haven't really had a need for one. I've got a pretty good router built in, or a pretty good firewall built into my router. It's got some pretty good firmware on it. In my experience, hardware firewalls are probably a better way to go because they're less susceptible to interference. But, that's just my 2 cents.
All right, no problem. And then how about you, Will?
Well, my router has quite a good firewall, same as Matthew, but I still use the uncomplicated firewall, or UFW, on Linux systems, or Clam, and for antivirus I use ClamAV. Back that up.
Yeah, now I have a good friend locally who could not make it this evening because of work, who has actually set up a home firewall himself. And believe it or not, he actually used an older version of Windows. I think he was using Windows 2000 at the time. It's been a few years, and I don't know what he's done to adapt or what he's done to change. I know he's got a new computer running his firewall, but I haven't been able to go into details with him on what he's running on that now. He likes the idea of taking one of his spare old computers and setting that up as a firewall. And I would have loved to have had him on the show so I could pick his brain on it, because like the rest of you here, I have most of my, all my firewall is coming in through the router itself. And it does have some pretty good features built into it where I can set how strong I want the firewall to be, whatever ports I want to have open, and that sort of thing. But it is an option that is available to you if you want to be able to have a home firewall at home. All right. Now, let's talk about something else that you could do. And this is something probably some of you have never thought of. But why not taking an old computer, like an old laptop, and having a research station maybe in your kitchen or in your garage? An example is, let's say it's Thanksgiving Day and you want to make that award-winning turkey, and then rather having to run back and forth to the office, why not have a computer there that's running a lightweight operating system that's hooked up to your network so that you can, get those recipes, or maybe even having one out in the garage for getting tips. We'll start with you, Matthew. What do you think about that?
That actually isn't a bad idea. People actually do that all the time. It's you can automate it so you really don't have to be there all the time monitoring the thing, and it just adds a level of convenience to the network that you just don't really see in Windows systems.
All right, and Secka, I imagine you must have a computer in every room at your house.
Actually, I don't. If I did, I'd probably wear a cricket bat over the face. My fiance doesn't take too kindly to the wiring mess in the office, so if I extended that to the rest of the house, I'd probably get into a lot of trouble.
Any thoughts on that, Will? Is there a computer in every room of the house?
Not really. There's one in my dad's office. There's two in my bedroom. Well, one of them's a netbook, so that goes around. And I've got my tablet. Most people have phones nowadays.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of people will just have their tablet with them. But it is a good idea. Brian, how about you?
I pretty much just, my tablet's always within arm's reach, so that kind of fills that niche for me. But yeah, I mean, not a bad idea to have a computer in the garage or a computer in the kitchen it's always set up for quick access like that.
Shadow, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've got 2 laptops, a PSP Go, a cell phone. I'd have a freaking computer in the attic if I could.
So when you're changing the brakes and you can't figure out where that little cotter pin's supposed to go, at least you can go online and research it and find the information. Okay, let's talk about another thing that you could do. How about building a surveillance system for your home? You can take an old computer and you can hook up a bunch of webcams, run wires throughout the house and everything, and then be able to have a surveillance system that is recording activity around the home. Great for those of you with little toddlers while you're in the kitchen. You can have the cameras open so that you can see what the kids are doing, so that monitor what they're doing and that sort of thing. I think that is a great idea. Anybody have any comments on that?
Yeah, my parents recently bought a Z Moto. It's a 4-channel system. It's a standalone system, and it's running Linux. I don't know what version of the kernel they're using, but it's running a Linux kernel on that standalone box. That's actually pretty decent for a video surveillance system, but it's not that powerful, but it's not really repurposing an old system.
But the point is, there are guides online which would teach you how to actually do that. And as a matter of fact, I think, where did I see it here? Yes, there's an article on Lifehacker. Let me go ahead and copy that and send that over to the IRC channel for those of you who might be interested in that one. All right, and here's something that's been quite popular in the news. As many of you know, Steam is, has updated and that sort of thing. You can take an old computer and you can actually turn it into a Steam box. Now, of course, you're not going to get, what they're saying here is from this article I was reading, with the right hardware, Steam can easily rival the upcoming Xbox One or PlayStation 4. If your desktop computer is powered by a 2 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo or more processor, you can build one of these Steam box machines. Just add a game controller and you'll have a machine which is cheaper than buying one of those game machines themselves. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I figured that it'd probably be a really good idea for playing like old-looking, low-resource, like old side-scrolling platformers and things like that. But you definitely wouldn't be able to play any of the higher-end games. Like you'd probably struggle with Rust and games like that with it. But if you're not playing those, then it seems like it would be an excellent idea.
Yeah, the thing is, they're saying a 2 gigahertz or high, 2 gigahertz or higher. Now, obviously, these machines wouldn't really be that old. We're talking probably in the 5-year or older, 5 years or old or newer machines would probably be a good option for those, especially if it has a really powerful graphics card with that still is providing support for that graphics card, and that is something I have noticed, because it seems like the manufacturers who are producing the Linux drivers for these cards are outmoding them quite quickly. So you're lucky to get a proprietary graphics driver. I want to say 4 or 5 years after that card's been released. Would you say that's an accurate assessment, Seka?
Yeah, I'd say so. Once a card gets to 4 or 5 years old, especially the big, more powerful gaming cards that are released as gaming cards, and that's their sole purpose, they reach their end of life very quickly, because there's something big, better, and more sexy come out, within 2 years. So 5 years is a long stretch for proprietary drivers for any graphics card. Even the big, powerful workstation graphic cards, let alone the gaming cards.
But the good news is, and if anything I've been reading on Phronix is true, it appears that the open source drivers are now starting to catch up to the proprietary drivers. And if that is the case, then we can expect longer hardware life, especially if they're starting to come out with drivers that can perform on par with what the proprietary drivers are doing. So that is a good option. It looks like we're running low on time here. So let me quickly run over some other options here that I hadn't picked out. Another option for outdated hardware is building your own DVR or digital video recorder. So, and it wouldn't take that really all that powerful of a PC. You probably just want to have a unit that has enough hard drive space, but you'd be able to repurpose an older machine for recording digital video. That would be an option for you. And this one is something that's very popular that a lot of people do. Building your own web server from home. Now, I don't know if any of you guys on the panel have built your own web server. I think so. If you have, I think you have, Seka. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Like I was saying last night, I've actually spent the last few years and basically every penny I have getting rid of my older hardware and upgrading to new, more powerful machines. But the principle is the same, because those machines are running. Most of them are running VMware ESXi, so I've got to manage my resources on the virtual machine, so that most of them are pretty low resources. Maybe using one core, and my web server that I'm running from here is actually only running around about 700 megabytes of RAM. It is a really good way of using an older machine to host a website, as long as you've got the bandwidth to do it, and then you've got to make sure that your network's nice and secure, so that any app you put on that web server doesn't open up the rest of your home network, because most of your home network's going to be more private than that big, powerful, dedicated server that you can go and rent from any company.
Now, I just have to ask you, what would you say the minimum system requirement for an older machine would be to set up a web server?
Minimum system requirements is basically nothing. It depends on what you're doing, but if it's just that like a little blog that's got a tiny database, you're only posting to a blog every now and then. The Raspberry Pi does it with ease, and it's only got a 700 megahertz processor and 512 megs of RAM. So. And you can go much, much lower than that if you have that sort of hardware laying around with plenty of ease, as long as you've got the storage space to put whatever it is you're putting on it. But for, like I say, a small-time blog or a forum or anything like that that's relatively low traffic, it's not very resource-intensive, and the databases don't grow so quickly that storage becomes a problem too quickly.
Yeah, and PDQ was saying in agreement to what you were saying, that a Pentium 1 with 56 megabytes of RAM would be sufficient for running a web server. But the key point that you were mentioning was just having the right amount of bandwidth. Because, obviously, if you build a website that's getting heavy traffic, you're going to need the bandwidth that's coming in and for the server to be able to handle serving those needs. Because pretty much most of those servers run headless anyway. You don't even have a monitor hooked up to them. It's just a machine that's on, and it just, it gets a request to, send this content, and it does it. So, yeah. So we've covered some very good stuff here on the show. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to all of our guests, where they'll share any of their final thoughts on repurposing old hardware. We'll start off with you, Brian.
Yeah, just really the thing you got to look out for is make sure that you got to be careful. You got to do your research and make sure that the hardware does match what you're trying to do. Like the web server thing, don't need a lot of resources there. For a media server, you might need a little bit more horsepower. So a little bit of research will save you a lot of headaches in the long run.
Exactly. Lifehacker is a great place to go if you want to find out, and they have tutorials and everything on all of these things we've discussed on the show today. So that is a good resource indeed. Any final thoughts, Shadow Wing?
Well, I would have to agree with Brian. You just got to do your research. Make sure the hardware you're going to try to use will work with what you want to do. Like, for example, an FTP server. You have to make sure you have enough data storage space in order to run the system. You don't need that fast of a processor or that much RAM. You just need the data storage.
Matthew.
Yeah, I would have to agree with the other two guys, but I'd also like to say that it's not just about repurposing old hardware to do specific tasks. If you have an old computer, like an old XP machine that just simply won't run the newest Microsoft software, you could certainly put new life back in the machine by installing Linux as well. There's just so many options. It's pretty much endless.
Any final thoughts, Setka?
Yeah, I mean, the other guys have pretty much nailed it. But I the main thing I would say is if you're going to set up, not so much a media center, but if you're going to set up a small firewall or anything like that, don't just leave it at a firewall or that web server or anything like that. Get a few services running on it and get that machine working, because otherwise it's just going to be sitting there idle most of the time and burning up all your power bandwidth.
Will, any final thoughts?
Well, I have to agree with Brian. The thing is, all hardware you buy nowadays becomes obsolete really quickly now. And my choice of a media server out of an old computer would be something like upgrade it to what you can and use that to an extent where it won't work anymore.
Right, and I've heard a lot of good things here, and what we've talked about on today's show is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there are so many options that are available to you for that old hardware. If you have any youngsters at home and you want to give them an edge in school, you can take that old computer and install Edubuntu on it, and then give the kids educational programs and games that they can play. There's so many options that are available to you. So rather than throwing away that old hardware and or just having it sitting up in the attic collecting dust, there are tons of options for getting years and years and years more of use out of that. I'd like to thank Brian, Shadow Wing, Matthew Moore, Setka, and Will for joining us on today's discussion. We're going to have another podcast next week at Cup of Linux. We're going to talk about VPNs. What are they? Why should you use them? And why should you care? I also want to thank Voltem and the Linux distro community for having us for the Zoo Crew podcast. We will be back again sometime in the future to do another one of these. We always love interacting with the Linux distro community. So if you are not a member of the LDC, I recommend that you visit linuxdistrocommunity.com and check them out. You can also check us out at cupoflinux.com. We have a rapidly growing community there and a bunch of fun activities going on. So between the two, this is a great place to interact, learn about Linux, and share your experience and knowledge with others. Well, that's all we have for right now. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. Thank you, all of you in the listening room who've been participating on IRC. We'll be back again in the future, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.